Mr. President, distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As I say, I'm delighted to be here with you this morning, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I have been reading your programme and the various motions which you have put down for this conference, and I have to say I am very impressed with the body of work that you and your committee, and indeed the quality of the work that you and your committee undertake on an ongoing basis. In the first instance, this conference, it provides me with an opportunity to express my own and the government's thanks to each and every one of you for the work that you do on a daily basis that maintains the safety of our communities and that keeps our country safe. I acknowledge that the work is challenging and demanding, and I've done that on many occasions since I became Minister for Justice. I think it's important that we say that. The work does require courage and dedication. In some instances, tragically, members have paid the ultimate price for their dedication to duty, and we should never forget this. I have met with your committee on a number of occasions, and Mr. President, I do want to say to you and to your committee that I am committed to ongoing work with you in a spirit of partnership, because I want to hear about your experience and I want to work with you to take on the issues that you are identifying, because you're out there doing the work day in, day out. You know the issues, you know what needs to be done. Recently, I have been struck, and I have increasingly heard comments, as I'm sure you have yourselves, from members of the public, from my own constituents, from members of the Dáil, and indeed seen the recent editorials in newspapers, as I'm sure you have yourself, all commenting on the excellent policing and detective work of An Garda Siochana, both in terms of local cases and higher profile cases. And indeed, many comments have been made to me about the commitment of the individual members of An Garda Siochana. But of course, that individual commitment that gets praised is simply indicative of a wider ethos that you have in terms of your commitment. I think that's very welcome that we're hearing those comments, particularly against a backdrop of recent tough times, which I acknowledge, which you've mentioned. The service has received a lot of criticism. Criticism that, paints every member of the force as bad, is just wrong, and it must be rejected. And I reject it, and I've just rejected it. Rejected it in my question and answer session with the media outside. It's simply wrong to do that. You hear it about politicians as well. It's wrong to paint every member in that way. On the other hand, we must all have the honesty, and indeed I would say the self-confidence, to face up to valid and constructive criticism. That's important as well. Because there is no organisation, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there is no organisation that cannot learn lessons and improve. That's the reality. We're all faced with change and opportunities to improve on a daily basis. And I want to say to you that my objective is to ensure that the confidence of the public in the Garda Siochana is maintained, and to support the necessary changes so that the high quality and respected service that the Garda Siochana provides is enhanced to better meet the realities, the requirements and the expectations of 21st century policing. Because we all know how policing is changing. We know the new demands, not least in the whole area of technology that you've been mentioning and cybercrime. And I'm very familiar with the issues that are being dealt with internationally by Interpol and Europol in relation to the increasing sophistication of criminals and their use of technology. That's very obvious, and that places new demands on you all. But this is why the underlying focus of the reform programme underway is to put in place effective arrangements, and I know you've been discussing them with the representative from the inspectorate here earlier. It's to put in place effective arrangements for the oversight, governance and the accountability of the Garda Siochana. And these are new issues for you, but they are ongoing. I am clear that the Commissioner is determined to develop An Garda Siochana into a service that measures up to the best police service in the world. And why not? We must not fail to put in place good policies to ensure that any vulnerabilities, and of course there are vulnerabilities, there are always vulnerabilities, but we must make sure that any vulnerabilities that are in the organisation do not get out of control. And you can be sure that this government is committed to putting in place, and where necessary reforming, the organisation, structures, practices and systems to support you to effectively deliver the best possible policing and security services for our communities in our country. A key element of the government's comprehensive programme of justice reform is the Independent Policing Authority, which has been mentioned. And I hope to publish that legislation in the near future. I am aware that you have been a strong supporter of such an authority, and I am grateful for your contribution to the consultative process in this regard. And I'm happy to say that your input is being taken into account in the development of the proposed legislation, and we have a further opportunity to do that again before the legislation is published. There are many issues to be considered in the transition that is involved in a police authority. They are complex issues. They're not simple issues. They're important issues from the point of view of the security of the state. They're important issues in terms of governance and how the police authority will do its work. Obviously, it's going to evolve to a degree. We're going to see that over the next few years. But it is very important that the basic legislation that is put in place is effective for the task in hand, the very important task in hand. And other countries do have police authorities, but we need to develop our own police authority that meets the needs of our society and of our force. The Protected Disclosure Act of 2014 became operational on the 15th of July. The Act provides a robust statutory framework within which workers, including members of An Garda Siochana, can raise concerns regarding potential wrongdoing that has come to their attention in the workplace, in the knowledge that they can avail of significant employment and other protections if they are penalised by their employer or suffer any detriment for doing so. The commencement of this Act means the commitment contained in the programme for government to introduce whistleblower protection legislation. Of course, in addition to reform, there must be investment, and that's a point that your organisation continually and rightly makes. Clearly, the improved economic situation gives us a great opportunity now to consider these issues, because if you don't have an economy that's functional and that is working and that's effective, you cannot invest. It's as simple as that. You need a functioning economy to have a functioning society and to have effective frontline services. And as we see the economic improvements, clearly we're in a much better position to consider the priorities that are necessary for our society and the kind of investment that's needed in order for us, and in this instance for yourselves, to move forward. And I would say that despite the very considerable financial constraints which face us, I have been making it a priority, as you've seen, to secure funding for the Garda Siochana. Since 2012, the government has invested 27.5 million in the new Garda vehicles. And I know that members of An Garda Siochana appreciate this. I know it was much needed. I certainly understand that. But it does make a difference to communities to see you being supported in this way, and it is important. We also had in the budget, we had a capital allocation of 42 million for the provision of new Garda divisional headquarters and an additional money in relation to ICT projects, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. I do want to say I recognise the point that Tim makes in relation to the refurbishment, and what I would like to see is a transparent system where there is ongoing capital investment and a clear publication of a list of the Garda stations that need refurbishment. So people know that the need has been recognised, and as capital becomes available, that there is a programme of investment. Because it's very clear to me that there does need to be an ongoing programme of refurbishment in Garda stations throughout the country. This is just a start. We're not going to do it all overnight. Following the publication of the Garda Inspector's report on crime investigation, I clearly signalled my intention to support the Garda Siochana in their efforts to address IT issues that were identified in the report. And I do want to thank the Garda Inspectorate for the work that they did and how they addressed this issue. I think it's really important that it is addressed. I've already talked about the changing nature of crime and the use of technology by criminals, and it's very sophisticated, as we know. And I want to see An Garda Siochana equipped for the digital era. That's essential. And, you know, what I have done, I think it's the first time it's been done, I've taken a whole-of-government approach to dealing with the ICT issues. I've discussed it with the Minister for Public Expenditure and the Garda Commissioner. I've set up a high-level group because the government are having a whole-of-government approach to the development of ICT. We're very close to completion of a report that will map out, I believe, comprehensively for the first time, the kind of ICT that you need, and will put a programme of investment in place to which the government are committed. But what we will have is a map from, you know, A to Z of what is needed, so that when we approach the first part of the investment, you can see clearly what the plan is and how it addresses, for example, the policing priorities that you have. And that the ICT can match the policing priorities, and that you will see there is a programme of investment to deal with the ICT issues. And, you know, during the many years of the Celtic Tiger, they weren't addressed. That's the reality. I mean, going around speaking to local Gardaí, seeing how you do your work, that's very obvious, and it hasn't been good enough. And I want to accept that. It just isn't good enough, the backup and the ICT backup that you have at present, and it needs to be better. And we are absolutely committed as a government to beginning that investment based on the plan, as I say, that will be finalised very shortly. And you will see that, and that report should be published in the near future. But I would say, when it comes to the question of resources, first and foremost must be the investment in human resources. It is the men and women of An Garda Siochana who make it what it is, and we must never forget that. Last September, the government oversaw the first recruitment of new Gardaí since 2009. We reopened the Garda College for new recruitment, and we have committed to not letting it close again. To date, 300 new recruits have entered, as you know, the Garda College, with the first of these to join the force as sworn members in May. Today, I am happy to confirm at this conference that I have received sanction from the Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, and with the support of the Taoiseach. I received a sanction from Minister Brendan Howland for the recruitment of a further 250 new Gardaí over the coming months. I promised seamless, ongoing recruitment, and I am delivering on this promise. And I will keep Templemore open and vibrant, and I know that that new recruitment will make a difference to some of the issues that you have been speaking about earlier. It is going to help with some of the challenges of resourcing that you face. The additional recruitment will bring to 550 the total number of Gardaí that would have been recruited by this government between September 14 and October 15, and signifies the determination of government to delivering an effective, responsive police service to protect our communities and respond to emerging crime trends. Obviously, I also welcome the recent government approval for the appointment of the superintendents to chief superintendents and 38 inspectors to the rank of superintendent. Competition for the promotion to the ranks of inspector and sergeant will commence again as early as possible. And of course, the Commissioner has also authorised the appointment of 185 new sergeants and 43 new inspectors in the last 12 months. All of this is about investing and promoting the fantastic talent that exists in An Garda Siochana. The increased investment across the board in terms of people, vehicles and systems is vital to supporting and underpinning the new transformation programme and the anti-crime strategy, which are currently being finalised by Garda Commissioner Noreen O'Sullivan. I do believe that this investment, and indeed ongoing investment, will ensure a sustainable future for An Garda Siochana and equip it to meet those realities and challenges of 21st century policing and security. I am committed to supporting Gardaí who are there. I'm committed to listening to what you have to say on a range of issues, as I've said. That's why I'm here today. That's why I have welcomed the opportunity to meet with your President and his executive colleagues since I took office as Minister. I can assure you that your views and those of your association expressed today and at our bilateral meetings are not ignored. I have listened closely to what you have said today, and I will hear more detail, I will get more detail about the outcome of this conference. And at those meetings, I have listened to what you've had to say in relation to industrial relations. I wish to confirm that I am in ongoing contact with my colleague, the Minister for Jobs, Richard Bruton, in relation to access to the Workplace Relations Commission and to identify precisely the steps that need to be taken. I have been actively examining the issues around access to ICTU, and I look forward to the reports under the Haddington Road Agreement. The unique nature and role of An Garda Siochana needs to be taken into account in considering the complex legal and policy issues involved in these matters. The discussions and considerations have not yet been finalised, but obviously I will be working with you and your associations as we get updates on those matters. You have also raised with me concerns regarding policing policy, such as the question of the detention of intoxicated persons and a right of arrest in domestic violence incidents. These are important daily issues for you. You are the frontline practitioners, as I've already said, and I greatly appreciate your sharing of the issues that you're finding on a day-to-day basis that need to be examined. And I have asked that the matters your association have raised with me to be examined as a matter of urgency. And if I can introduce legislation to deal with it, either in the domestic violence legislation, which is due before the summer, or elsewhere, I will do that. I am getting the necessary legal advice on those issues. If they were simple, they would have been dealt with in legislation already, but I'm certainly completely open to examining them and seeing either initiatives I can take from a legislative point of view that would support your work and that are needed. I will conclude by saying that An Garda Siochana runs like a navy cord throughout Irish life. For more than 90 years you've done that. Your members and its members keep our communities safe and preserve the security of the state. Those are massive contributions to Irish life, one citizen at a time, one community at a time. They are contributions delivered in the face of ever-present threats that sometimes, sadly, we know, lethally materialise. We're grateful as a nation, and we don't forget as a government. I want to support the Garda Siochana in continuing and enhancing the work through reform, through legislation and investment. I want to listen to your views and take into account your perspective. Thank you again, Mr. President, for your welcome. I wish you every success in your conference, and I look forward to meeting you again in the near future to continue our discussions on areas of mutual concern. Thank you very much indeed.